Hey there, travelers. Welcome to the camp. Grab yourself some stew and set a spell. Marvel at the untold tales of the untamed land of Red Dead Online. In a lawless land full of outlaws, griefers, modders, and plain old douchebaggery, these dusty trails hold many a fabulous story to behold. If you have any of these fantastic stories yourself, go ahead and leave them in the comments to share with us all. If you enjoy the stories, leave a like or subscribe to hear more as they are revealed. Did I ever tell you about the time me and my Native American sidekick Spirit Heart were set upon by modders of epic proportions and not only walked away unscathed for the most part, but actually felt entertained and joyous in the fact that we saw new content despite Rockstar being asleep at the wheel for new DLC. I like to call this story the Tale of the Gentle Giant. Now it all started on a lazy day out collecting collectibles for Madame Nazar. We were down by the Dakota River traveling towards Limpany because we had heard rumors of the Madam setting up shop there for the day. I was riding in the lead with Spirit Heart not far behind when I heard Spirit call out from behind, "Dude, check this shit out." I could tell by the tone in her voice that this was not going to be an average encounter right away. I turned and lo and behold, I saw a giant nomad creature of great stature and menacing features approaching us and walking directly towards us on a slow stroll. Never one to shy away from an encounter, Spirit Heart ran directly up to this giant figure and tried to communicate with it as the creature bent down and examined Spirit Heart, obviously bewildered by her bravery. Meanwhile, my butthole clenched and prepared for the onslaught of cougars and bears and clansmen NPCs or two-headed skeletons to attack us, as we fell under the map in explosions and fire, as anyone in this godforsaken land knows is the next step to an encounter such as this. Instead, only hookers from Valentine and a very angry barkeep going on something about an unpaid bar tab were spawning around the giant. He turned and tried to lose them by walking away and dismissing them into the dirt as quickly as they came. Still, Spirit Heart followed, trying to speak to this foreboding creature, and despite it not responding, seemed oddly intrigued by Spirit Heart's persistence and stopped occasionally to stoop down to Spirit's level. It was then that the giant's very angry she-witch girlfriend arrived on the scene, yelling about the whereabouts of the giant last night and how could he ghost her like that. The giant was noticeably embarrassed and tried to walk away, but the she-witch continued to escalate the scene and verbally abuse this fearsome creature until they started attacking each other physically. And despite my warnings to keep back, Spirit Heart's inquisitive nature continued to get the best of her, and we soon found ourselves witness to a lover spat the likes of which we had never seen. The giant, having had enough, kicked his she-witch girlfriend down the hill and proceeded to run and jump off of a cliff and disappear in a shower of sparks while his she-witch lover ran and jumped down after him. Well, never one to give up easily, Spirit Heart ran down to the bottom of the cliff to investigate the whereabouts of these cross lovers of great stature, as I reluctantly followed, only to find that the giant had truly disappeared. Only the still very angry and disheveled she-witch stood there brooding and collecting her wits, ignoring Spirit Heart's attempts at communication. We stood around for a few minutes as the she-witch wiped her angry tears from her grotesque face in an effort to hide her public display of feelings. Spirit Heart continued to try unsuccessfully to evoke some response from her as I rifled through the players list trying to find a clue as to who was behind this great display of heartfelt violence and emotion. I came up with nothing as the she-witch finally ran off towards the river and disappeared in a flash of light. So if you're still here, you might want to grab another bowl of that stew, because this is where things started to get a little bit more strange. It took us a few moments to regather our wits, and we finally laughed that we had just survived what was probably the most intense encounter with modders that we had experienced to date. We recouped and was about to go back to the drab existence of online collector roll BS. I then heard Spirit Heart shout, "Tidal wave!" which I found peculiar as we were standing on the bank of a river. But I turned towards the water, and there was indeed 10-foot swells coming towards us, and the ground began to shake, and the skies lit up with lightning and thunder. But even more menacing was the unmistakable stench of those Valentine horrors we were catching from downwind that was even overpowering the smell of the dead animals and fish that were washed up upon the shore from the giant waves. Spirit Heart lit off towards the pungent smell as I reluctantly followed, and we soon came upon the giant who had returned to the river and was trying to wash off and rid himself of his unfortunate odor situation. Spirit Heart tossed him a bar of native soap she had made back at camp and suggested he should probably burn his clothes. The giant did not respond, but used the soap and continued to scrub and dunk himself in the river stream. While he did this, he summoned a team of miniature donkeys into the water. Now, I don't know if this was to thank us or to distract us with some kind of mild entertainment while he bathed. Either way, it worked, because let's be honest here, who doesn't love a little ass? So we each jumped on a tiny donkey and rode around with stupid grins on our faces while the giant finished up his bath. As we thanked him, he proceeded to pull out a trumpet and begin playing it, and to our surprise, it was actually pretty good. Like some kind of Chuck Mangione straight from the underworld. Well, between the horned beast blasting a trumpet and the earthquakes and tidal waves and thunder crashes, this gave me an almost biblical foreboding and a revelation that this was far from over and things would surely get increasingly stranger in our immediate future. As this prophetic episode washed over me, I could not help but feel eerily calm despite the intense disaster surrounding me. The giant continued to play his trumpet. Spirit Heart merely rode around on her tiny donkey, cackling and clapping with excitement. Now, when the last of the giant waves subsided down to a normal level on the banks of the river, I continued to try to draw dicks in the mud by dragging my feet through the mud while riding this height-challenged donkey. Now, I ended up abandoning this project quickly, as I do with so many others, when I heard Spirit Heart yell off in the distance that her horse was dead on the riverbank. This also caught the attention of the giant, who started off in that direction, and I followed suit and crossed to see if there was anything I could do. Now, I went to try and console Spirit Heart over her loss, but in all honesty, she didn't seem all that put off by the incident and just exclaimed that she had more horses. Well, the giant, on the other hand, seemed very distraught and frantically tried many attempts to revive the horse. Finally, it was clear to us that the horse was not coming back. It was at this moment that the giant creature came into voice chat and spoke to us for the first and only time in our encounter. He only said 2 lines, but they were powerful. He said, "I'm sorry for killing your horse. He was a good horse." Well, this totally caught us off guard, as we had never encountered a modder that showed compassion and remorse in such a way. It was at that very moment he had earned the title of Gentle Giant. It was the last thing we expected from this lumbering, whoremongering, beastly figure we had encountered. I sat back and observed as the gentle giant began to chant over the dead steed and seemed to be saying some kind of blessing over the corpse as Spirit Heart gave her own little native dance to send her steed off into the great pasture in the sky. It was a touching moment that I respectfully stood my distance and merely pointed and laughed, as that's kind of my defense mechanism when things get uncomfortably awkward. I never really liked that horse anyway, but it wasn't my place, and I wanted to show a little respect to my Native American friend. Now, speaking of awkward, when they finished up this strange multicultural funeral ceremony, the giant stood up and immediately cast another spell, summoning a small battalion of little people with their trousers at half-mast. They stood around with their little dongs a-swinging in the breeze, and I couldn't help but wonder if this was something in giant culture that equated out to dicks out for Harambe. Now, whatever the reason for this, we all felt a bit weirded out and realized if anyone was to pass by, they may get the wrong idea and run to the sheriff, try to incriminate us and have us arrested. While this may be the norm down in Saint Denis, midget porn is still a hanging offense in New Hanover. So we all started to dispatch the tiny exhibitionists and stomp out the evidence as quickly as they had appeared. The giant seemed to take an extra delight in this activity and carried on like it wasn't his first time. We made short work of getting rid of the little people, no pun intended, and to be completely honest, although this encounter was getting stranger by the minute, the giant immediately disappeared into thin air, but it was far from over, and things got really wild in the moments to come. Now this story is rambling on, I'm sure you need a break, so I'll make another pot of stew before I tell the rest of this tale, but you be sure to come back and hear how this story ends in the next chapter. I promise you carnage and fantastical beasts the likes of which you may have never seen when the gentle giant returns and all hell breaks loose. Thank you for listening. If you have a story, please leave it in the comments and like and subscribe to hear more campfire stories from the world of Red Dead Online. Until then, Zodiac Inferno out.